Today we're sitting in a 1965 Piper Cherokee 140, and on these early model Cherokees with the bow tie yoke, there's an AD that you have to remove this emblem, which I've already loosened up, so it's loose here. I can just pop it right off. And underneath there is a pin, and then right around the pin and in this area you have to inspect for cracks at annual. And because this has to get pulled off every single year, what ends up happening is these weren't designed to be removed a lot on and off all the time. And so after several times of being removed, people, first off, they pry like this, and it ends up marring up the edges, so you get a kind of ugly finish in the plastic that's non-repairable. And then on top of that, to reinstall, a lot of AMPs will just put some epoxy around the edges here, and so it's going to have years and years of buildup, or they just leave these off and then you've got this ugly hole here. And these emblems get scraped up too from this process. So there's not a really good solution other than just leaving these off, otherwise you're going to scrape this up. So the solution that we've come up with here is going to be a removable panel or emblem that we're going to be able to remove off and on. That's magnetic, but we're going to have low powered magnets that will not affect our magnetic compass depending on where you locate it, but we'll test that here in a minute. Before the install, you just want to verify. So we'll be installing a frame that's going to fit in right where the old emblem was, and then we will be able to snap in a replacement emblem. Now this emblem is going to stick out a little bit more proud, but the reason for that is that there's this integrated little notch right there, so when it comes time to remove, all you have to do is stick a little narrow flathead screwdriver and twist, and it will separate, and then you've got access, a little window to look in for cracks, and this won't obstruct the view of the inspection. And then when you're done, it's as simple as snapping that panel right back on. And so this is going to prevent further damage, and then it's also just going to sprucing up your interior appearance a little bit. Before we get started with the install, we're going to want to verify that our deviation on our magnetic compass is not going to be affected by our magnets that we're going to be installing. Now these magnets are designed to be extra small and create a very minimal magnetic field, but you want to test anyway. And so as long as we can be, a good 6 inches or so away without affecting it, we're going to be well in the clear for them being mounted on our yoke. So what I would recommend doing is start with your assembly in your hand and put it all the way over by the door. So it's way far away, so you can kind of get a reading, and so we can see that we're pretty much right on the 300 mark. And then I'm going to bring it closer, and then we'll watch for deviation. So right about, I would say right about at about the 6 inch mark is right about where it starts to take effect. And then I pull away, and then it goes back. And we'll try that again. Yeah, right about 4 to 6 inches it starts to mess with it. So we know that we're far enough away from the yoke that it's going to not be affected. Now if you had your magnetic compass right down at the base of your yoke, you might want to test that when you push your yoke all the way forward, just to make sure it's not going to interfere. If there's any interference, don't install this kit. But we specifically designed these so that they would have minimal effect on these, even when they're really close. So next we're going to prepare for the install. Now the frame for the panel is going to include some VHB 3M double-sided tape and this red film. You just peel it off and then you can stick it right in there. However, probably most of the time you're not going to be able to use that because you're going to have all this old glue and epoxy residue, which is going to create a rough surface even after cleaning it off. And so we're going to actually have to hard epoxy in our frame. But if you happen to have a nice clean surface because it hasn't had all this years of epoxy and stuff, you can just go ahead and peel back the red film and just pressure fit this in there, and that's all you got to do. But like I said, most of the time you're probably going to have to clean this up, and then you're going to have to use something a little more aggressive than this double-sided tape because your surface is not going to be all clean and ready. So I'm just going to take a razor blade, and I don't want to dig into this black plastic. I'm trying to preserve all the plastic, but I need to clean off as much of this epoxy as I can, because that's contaminating our mating surface for our epoxy. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to get out as much as I can, and it's going to be really hard to get it all out. And like I said, we might remove a little bit of the black plastic, but we're just trying to remove as little as possible. Now that we got all that cleaned up, we're just going to go ahead and set this in there and make sure that it seems pretty even. Like I said, it's going to stick up just a tiny bit, maybe a millimeter or two. Now, I'm not going to be able to use this double-sided tape, so I'm just going to peel it off and discard it. And then we'll test fit it again. Without the tape, it should sit pretty much flush. And then that's what our finished product will look like, is something like that. Okay, so we can now move on to the permanent install. So I have some masking tape here. This is just going to be used once it's done and is curing. We're just going to tape a little piece across to hold the frame in. So I'm going to just keep this right up here, just somewhere out of the way where I can get to it easily. And for the glue or the epoxy, you're going to want to put something more than just standard super glue. You could probably get away with super glue, but you're going to want something just a little bit, that's not going to pop off over time. And so what I recommend is there's this JB Weld plastic bonder. And this stuff cures, it says, in about 15 minutes. But the reason I actually really like this stuff is because you can get these mixers, and with the mixers you can just attach them onto the end here and it will mix the product. Now it is kind of wasteful because you're going to have a lot of waste in the tube here, but that way I can pinpoint and you don't want to put too much epoxy in here, because when you go to set your frame on there, it'll ooze out and it will come out here, ooze inwards. We don't want to add extra stuff like they did in the past here. We just want enough that our frame's going to stick. We'll go ahead and remove the cap, and then we're going to twist on our new spot. Now I don't want to build too much pressure because I want to be able to have some ability to control it. So a little bit right there, put a little bit right there, and I'm going to put a little bit just right up here like that. And I'm just going to clean up these edges a little bit. So one on each corner where it's rounded, and then one just right in the middle. And that's so that we got in those 3 points. Now if you wanted to go a little overkill, because I have a little extra here, we could just put just a drop, and a drop right there, and a drop like that. All right, so that's what we want it to look like. And then the textured portion should go inwards, and you should be able to see the 3 little round magnets that are black facing outwards. So that's the orientation we're going to use. And then it's as simple as lining it up like that, and just lightly pressing in. And if we do it right, we shouldn't have any epoxy oozing out, just like that. Now we're going to take our tape and we're just going to stretch it across like that, and then we're going to let this sit for our 15 minutes. It's been about 30 minutes, and according to the directions, it's enough time for it to set up. However, I would give it even longer if you can, maybe overnight. You'll notice that I put an extra piece of tape right here after I finished filming last time, so that it would give it a little bit of extra pressure to finish curing. So we'll go ahead and peel this back. Because it's only been 30 minutes, I'm going to be a little careful with this, but according to the directions, it should be enough time. If you let this sit overnight, you shouldn't have to worry at all about being careful. All right, right there is what it looks like now with the frame, and you can see that we have plenty of room to look in and to inspect for cracks anywhere along here. In fact, the only close to being a new obstruction is just this little divot right here to mount this middle magnet. These ones are the same size as the little rounded portions that were in there already. So now all we have to do is install our plate. And so we have several different options. The original plate emblem was this, so we have one that is the similar design. And so if we're going to stick with this one, we just simply snap it on, and that is all there is to it. And then as far as removal, you just take a nice skinny screwdriver or a pick tool, and you find that little notch, and you just pull it out, and that's all there is to it. So we've gotten all these different styles, like the old classic Piper design, the newer style. There's another legacy style. You can also just get a blank panel, or if you let us know your N number, we can custom make one for you, which is probably what we're going to leave in this plane. So hopefully you'll find this is a nice solution for keeping your yoke and your overall interior of your Cherokee looking nice, while also being able to conform with that AD, which has the possibility of messing up your yoke. Thanks for watching.